I have made every embarrassing mistake that you can think of in high ticket sales. I've lost massive deals because of my ego. I've joined offers that were not right for me. I've joined some scammy offers that I sold on for like a little bit that made me feel shitty. By a little bit, I mean a day or two. I did not stay long. And I've been so aggressive on calls that prospects hung up on me. And here's the thing, those mistakes taught me everything that I know now. And once I was able to be aware of them and fix them, took me from struggling making 4 grand a month to consistently hitting 30. And today we're going to talk about my biggest failures so that you don't have to go through the same pain that I did. So let's dive in. So mistake number one was joining offers without doing the proper due diligence. One of my first offers a couple years back was a real estate investing offer that was completely wrong for me. And I jumped in for all the wrong reasons, right? On the surface, I saw that there were guys making the amount of money that I wanted to make. So I was like, fuck, then I must be able to make what I want to make here, right? So I jumped in and I took 60 calls and closed 3 of them. And the biggest thing here was I had no conviction. The offer was 15 grand and I was trying to convince people to join something that I didn't even fully believe in myself. Obviously, I'm not going to be able to create any urgency there, which led down a bad downward spiral, which led to even more unclosed deals, which led to me doubting myself and doubting my skill set, which even led me doubting high ticket sales as a whole. The thing is, at least this is my belief, that for people who are making, these were like everyday people that I was selling to, making like 60, 70 grand a year. And in my opinion, if you are making that kind of money, you need to learn a high income skill, not try to get, invest into real estate. I don't know how familiar you guys are with real estate, but the program I was selling was for a method called the Burr method, which is ultimately having a fuck ton of rentals, and then those rentals generate residual income, and then eventually off the residual income you could quit your job. But on average, these properties were maybe netting like $300 to $400. That's like on the high end, right? Sometimes even less. So for someone to be able to replace their income, they would need a fuck ton of real estate, and having a fuck ton of real estate would mean they would need a fuck ton of debt. And it did not make sense to me when they can learn a skill as I had done before high ticket sales. I learned a skill that was able to get me to a much higher income, right? Go from washing dishes to making like 90 grand a year. Like these people, so some would be making less than 60, 70 grand, right? Some would be making 30 grand. I wasn't wholeheartedly convicted that this is what they needed to do. So of course that would show on my calls. I wasn't aligned, right? I also just literally did not enjoy talking about this shit. The thing that taught me, because people were actually getting results in the program, but the thing that taught me was how important alignment is, right? Because all the people on that offer were active real estate investors and they actually enjoyed talking about the shit. They were like nerds about it. And all of them actually started as students, right? I didn't, and I didn't care about real estate. I didn't care about talking about cap rates and interest rates and fucking the Burr method and this and that. Like, I didn't care. And like, you are not going to sit there for 8 to 12 hours a day talking about something that you don't care about. So the lesson here is you don't need to be jumping up and down about what you're selling, but you should at least care. And so that's why I did really well selling BizOp, because I wasn't super excited about teaching people how to make faceless YouTube channels, but I knew the transformation that was possible through investing into info online and then being able to start something, and then that leading into the next thing, right? Even if it wasn't faceless YouTube that they did, maybe there was something that they would learn from the program that would lead to them doing the next thing, right? Like e-com is where I started, and then I eventually landed a job in marketing, and then I said fuck that and got into sales, right? But one thing led to another. So I was able to sell that with so much conviction because I really believed that this was in these people's best interest, right? These people who are making 30, 40 grand a year or even 60, 70 grand a year, it made sense for them to learn the skill online. So that's mistake number one. Mistake number two was letting my ego destroy deals that could have closed. Now, the real problem here was that I was incongruent on my sales calls and I knew I was incongruent. So whenever the prospect would ask me something that would test my authority, I would crumble, right? And I would let my ego get the best of me. So for example, someone asking me, like when I was selling the YouTube program or the real estate program is a perfect example. Someone would ask me if I'm actively investing in real estate myself. And obviously the answer was no. And I would get defensive about that. And I'd be like, well, what does it matter if I'm selling? Like what I'm doing, like we're here to talk about you, right? And the interesting thing about this is when I started selling that YouTube automation offer, it's not like I was doing YouTube automation, right? But I had invested into myself. I had invested into my skill set. And so I was congruent with what I was having these people do. And so when someone would ask me something like that, I would handle it a lot different, right? And my energy would be a lot different when they would ask me that. And the reason was because I I knew that even if you're trying to test my authority, I know that I have the authority to tell you to do what I'm asking you to do because I've done it. And so I would deflect that to the fact that I've invested into myself. I've made this type of decision that I'm asking you to make. I made, and the difference was the person wasn't asking me for $7,000. They were asking me for 16,000. And I was also fucking broke and I did it. So when you think about, on your sales calls, what kinds of things do prospects say that maybe push you or that maybe test your ego? It's a direct reflection of the conversation you're not having with yourself. Only reason that that would piss me off is because I knew that they were low key right. I'm asking you to make a tough decision when I haven't made this level of a decision. I haven't made this type of an investment before. So it would turn into me and my ego versus them as opposed to me and them versus the person that they're trying to get away from because I hadn't gotten away from it myself. And so the lesson here is obviously you need to be congruent. That's the biggest thing. You need to be congruent with the words that you're saying. So if someone does try to test your authority, you have the fucking leg to stand on. You have the balls to push back and not get offended by it, right? Like you're not going to get offended by something that's not true. The next thing here is as a result of not being congruent, you feel like you have to, at least I did, felt like I had to over validate myself. I had to overcompensate for the fact that I wasn't congruent, which would be me trying to sell my experience to the prospect. Overall, me trying to show them that I belong here and that I'm the person for the job. And it'd be subconscious too. And then the call would turn into me proving myself more than it is about helping them. Obviously, they would feel that deals would fall apart. So how to cure that is just be fucking congruent, right? Mistake number 3 is I was like overly aggressive in burning leads. Now, I don't regret this one at all. And I honestly think that this is something that most closers, I'd say all closers have to go through a phase where you were just like, you learn how to use aggression on calls and then you're just like, way too fucking aggressive. And then you start, people hang up on you and you burn leads and like it's a part of the process because through that I was able to learn how to dial it back, right? But going into calls, I had this mentality of yes, no, or fuck you. And I learned that from Bill Walsh. And I haven't directly learned from Bill Walsh, but I was on a team that was heavily coached by him. And I really adapted that like, this person is either going to give me a yes, no, or fuck you. And that is all I'm taking. Now, again, the problem is a lot of you are too soft, right? You are so afraid of being pushy that you're just too soft and people don't respect you and deals fall through the cracks then as a result of that. And to me, I would much rather I lose the deal because I was too aggressive and I need to learn how to pull it back. Now, you obviously don't want to fuck up the reputation of your company or just you just don't. It's not a good feeling, right? Like when you get off of a boxing match, whether they bought or not, you just have this scummy feeling about yourself. Like you just like pressured the fuck out of this person. Whether or not they need it is a different story, but it's not a good feeling to have, right? So how do you handle pushback without being overly aggressive and ultimately burning people that probably shouldn't be burned? Well, number one, it has to start earlier in the call, right? Like you can't have this big dick energy at the end of the call if it hasn't been there the whole time. Like if you are going to challenge somebody on their BS and you're going to call them out, do that from the minute they start presenting BS so that it's not this big interruption to them and they're just not just like, who's this person who was this nice guy the whole call and then now they're calling me out on my bullshit. Now this sales guy wants me to pay, right? He wants to take my money versus no, this dude's been challenging me the whole call and this is just like a natural part of the conversation where he's still challenging me. So that's number one, is you need to challenge them early on. Number two is even if you are having the best call, you're having the best discovery, you still need to expect an objection. I don't care if they see, you temp check them and they're like, I'm an 11 out of 10. I honestly hate that temp check question, but different story for another day. You temp check them and they're like, yo, I'm an 11 out of 10. I love this. I want to do it. Or just all the buying signs. You need to expect that they are going to have an objection, right? Because here's the thing about objections. Objections are knee-jerk reactions most of the time. Someone could give you an objection, but they genuinely do want to do it, right? You don't take an objection as like this attack on you or like, we just had this great conversation and then now you're just this totally different person. That's you taking it personal, right? You need to expect that I am asking, think about the audacity that you have as a closer expecting a one call close, right? You are expecting this person who has been making decisions one way for all these years, and then they have a conversation with you, and not only do they make a different decision, they also invest fucking tens of thousands of dollars, right? Like we have a lot of audacity with what we do for a living here. And so I'm not saying that for you to cope and not push, and like obviously you should be expecting a one call close, right? But you should expect an objection. You should expect that they're gonna have resistance doing something different than they haven't done in all these years that they've had these goals. And when I started going to the end of my calls knowing that this dude's gonna have an objection, like give it to me, pause. But I'd be like, give it to me, think about it, or spouse, or whatever it is. I would just be ready for it. And lo and behold, I started handling way more objections. And I would lean back in my chair, right? I started handling way more objections because I wasn't coming from a place of frustration. You are not allowed to get frustrated as a sales rep. By the way, if you're making any of these mistakes right now, don't beat yourself up for it. Like I did all of this plus more that I'm about to tell you, and I still managed to build a multi six-figure career in sales and high ticket sales, right? And I was still able to take my parents on cool trips and live in a place like this, like despite all these mistakes. So you're not chopped. The key is learning from them quickly as opposed to constantly repeating them for months like I did. So if you want someone who has made every mistake in the book, help you avoid those mistakes and fast track your career, I still have a couple slots open for one-on-one coaching where depending on where you are, I will help you get placed on an offer. If you are not on an offer or if you're on a shitty offer, I'll help you get placed and then I'll help you succeed on that offer. So we can get you to hitting those 15 to 20K months consistently. Hit the first link in the description here to see if you qualify, but let's get back to the video. Mistake number 4, not investing into myself when I needed it the most. It's kind of similar to what I spoke about in number 2 and 3, right? But knowing I needed to invest myself and not doing it. Guys, I spent months trying to figure this out on my own, watching YouTube videos, reels, tweets. I used to constantly tell myself I will invest into myself when I make more money, which is why I spend so much time talking about this in my videos, because this way of thinking held me back for so long, and I would have been so much further ahead so much quicker had I not continued to buy into that. I would literally be using the same exact excuses that my prospects were giving me to myself. So as a result, I stayed stuck at 3 to 4 grand a month until I was finally not stubborn enough to invest into myself and to level up. And it's just so ironic, right? Because how can you tell somebody to do something that you are afraid of doing, or that for one reason or another you're not doing? Like, can you trust a fat trainer? No. Like, even if they know all the science and shit, like part of you is not going to trust them. And people can feel that on your calls. People hop on and you're saying the right words and you're asking the right questions, but something is just off, right? The energy is just off. The demeanor is it's just not fully there. It's not fully adding up. And it's because they can feel that you are not walking the walk. You're just talking the talk. And I'm sure you know this feeling, right? I'm sure there are people you see on social media that you can tell are capping. You can tell the words that they're saying, even though the words are good, you could tell that these words don't hold weight. And you can tell that they're just playing a part and they're playing a role. And this is exactly what happens on your calls. Like, you cannot be stagnant and then helping someone else overcome stagnancy. This is why the best reps that you see are in good shape and typically have made large investments into themselves that relate to their career and out of their career as well. What's interesting about this is once I finally put my nuts on the line and I made the investment of 16 grand into coaching, I started closing deals left and right. Like that first week, I had like a record week at the time. And it's not like I learned anything new, anything like groundbreaking in a fucking week, right? It was because I can hear the prospects BS from earlier on and challenge them and overcome it, even though I wasn't tactically doing it correctly. Like, there's obviously things that I was missing, but I could call it out earlier when I could feel something was off, right? Or at the end of the call, like I wouldn't accept that you don't have the money or that you need to think about it because I didn't accept that for myself. And one way or another, I started closing way more deals because I was finally living my words and my words had more weight and I could feel how much more they were landing with these prospects. And the final mistake here, number 5, is that I was focused on tactics as opposed to fundamentals. I was constantly chasing new objection handling techniques, which leads to what I was saying earlier about how I was like super fucking aggressive on calls and I would burn leads that I probably shouldn't have been burning. It's because I was like constantly chasing these new objection handling tactics and I would just like almost beat the prospects into submission at times. I always thought that there was some magic word tracks that could turn I need to think about it into here's my credit card. And I was constantly focusing, and this is very common, on what to say as opposed to what to believe, right? As opposed to why I'm even saying that. Because I would say the right things and then sometimes the prospect would say some shit that's not in alignment with what I'm looking at on my script. And I'm like, fuck, where do I go now? And then I would just like turn into aggression. I memorized scripts rather than understanding psychology. And overall, I just got caught up with the latest sales hacks and it did not work well for me. And the reason this fails is because prospects can feel when, even if they can't physically see you like reading off a script, they can feel when you're just like being weird and robotic. Two people can say the exact same thing and it lands totally different. And the problem with this is when you don't know how to think, like I said earlier, when you don't know how to think, if someone says something that throws off the script that you have in front of you, you're just a deer in the headlights. You need to understand fundamentals of decision making, fundamentals of how beliefs are formed, so that you can identify these beliefs earlier in the conversation and you can shift them. And if they try to give you pushback when you're trying to help them and you're trying to shift those beliefs, you actually have a leg to stand on, right? You have a leg to stand on. You're able to pivot within the conversation and you're not just staring at the screen like, I don't know what to say now. This also teaches you how to listen for language patterns that have kept that person stuck and will continue to keep them stuck. And you can hold them to a high standard. You can hold them accountable, because the truth is when you're challenging someone on a belief, like they own this belief. So it's not always going to be easy. They may defend the belief. What do you do then? What do you do when you ask someone, can you see how this way of thinking has kept you stuck? And they're like, no, I don't think it's kept me stuck. What do you do then, right? You're fucked if you don't know how beliefs are formed, right? How decisions are made so you could challenge them further. So look, I'm sharing these mistakes with you because I want you to learn from my mistakes rather than having to repeat them yourself. Every single one of these cost me months in progress and thousands in commission. But the good news is once you know what not to do, success becomes inevitable. The closers who actually sustainably make a living in this space are not the ones who never make mistakes because they don't exist. It's the ones who have the right guidance to be able to learn from those mistakes, adapt, and adjust quickly. So if you're ready to stop making these same mistakes and start hitting those big months consistently, hit the link in the description to apply to work with me one-on-one. I'll get you placed on an offer, or if you're on a shitty offer, I'll help you get on a better one. And then I'll equip you with the skills to actually succeed on the offer and not get let go and not be one of the guys who are on a good offer but then are making like 6,000-7,000 a month, right? You don't want to be that guy. As always, thank you for watching. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.